All right, folks, it is 6 o'clock, and now that we've determined that everybody in the room wants to be in the room, I guess, I'm calling the meeting of the Common Council to order. It is Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024, and it's 6 p.m. We're in the council chambers of the city of Platteville, and Colette will start with roll call.
Lynn Parrott,
Here.
Kathy Kopp,
Here.
Todd Casper,
Here.
Barbara Doss,
Here.
Bob Gates,
Here.
Ken Killian,
Here.
Tom Knowles.
Here.
Okay, there are several items on our consent agenda tonight. The first of which is the council minutes from both the regular meeting on April 9th and the special meeting on April 16th. And by the way, we have to recognize Tom Knoll tonight. It is his first regular meeting of the Common Council. He was seated at the 16th, and so welcome, Tom. You're right here in your chair, and that's good. Okay. Payment of bills, appointments to boards and commissions. So tonight, I have some appointments of citizens to committees. First of all, I have Eileen McCartney to the Commission on Aging for a partial term ending July 1, 2026. I have Paul Soderblom to the Historic Preservation Commission for a 3-year term ending May 1st, 2027. I have Paula Baumann to the Library Board for a 3-year term ending May 1st, 2027. And I have Will Lesueur to the Police and Fire Commission for a 5-year term ending May 1st, 2029. In addition to that, I have passed out the council members made selections relative to the committees they wish to serve on. I have passed that sheet out to the council members. I would say that there was only one kind of duplicate, but we've got that worked through. If you notice, there were some committees nobody volunteered for. So right now I have like a few extra. So if somebody wants to do the license committee that didn't volunteer before, if somebody wants to do the joint ET committee, I would gladly give those up. I don't need 5 committees. Although, yeah, you'll take one. So we'll go through that later. But other than that, I will say that we do have a special circumstance. Lynn Parrott is going to serve on the Commission as Aging as the regular council member. Council member Kopp is not only a city council member, she is a supervisor for the county. And in her position with the county, she serves on the ARDC board. And so I am making a special appointment of Kathy to the Commission on Aging as a liaison that will work between ARDC and our Commission on Aging. I think this will be beneficial both at the county level and at our city level. So Kathy, thank you for accepting that role. And Lynn, thank you for kind of sharing, for better or for worse, the Commission on Aging. So that's appointments tonight. Licenses in our packet tonight is the request to extend the license premises of 50/50 to include the south porch and stairs, area from the south porch extending south between the east and west property lines to Market Street, including the public sidewalk as defined under the sidewalk permit. Joe, did we get all that correct in the conditional use permit?
Yes.
Okay. Request to extend license premises of 7 Hills North at 92 East Main Street for the date of July 20th from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. This is the date of the cruise on Main and also the Southwest Music Festival. And they have asked for extension into an area in front of their business onto Main Street. And there was a diagram, and they will designate it with some kind of, it says stanchions. And when I think of stanchions, I don't necessarily think of things you would put on Main Street, but maybe that's my farm background. Okay, third, change of agent for Class A combination beer and alcohol and cigarette, tobacco, and electronic vaping device license for Quick Trip for the premise at 1805 Vision Drive. That's the one on the east side. 1 and 2 year operator licenses to serve and sell alcohol as in your packet. And I believe why we have some people in the audience tonight, the temporary Class B to serve fermented malt beverages to the Platteville Fire Department at the Broski Center, including the outdoor area of that's in Legion Park, as outlined on the drawing. It's basically the parking lot from the parking lot west, I believe I would call it, kind of from the parking lot west. That's for Saturday, June 22nd from 11 to midnight, and that is the date of the Platteville Fire Department's 150th celebration. If you don't have your pin, you should get it. We also have Platteville Main Street and City Park for Thursdays in June, the 6th, the 13th, the 20th, and the 27th for 6 to 8 p.m. for music in the park. And finally, we have a parade permit for the Platteville Fire Department on Saturday, June 22nd at 10 a.m. Now, is someone from the fire department wanting to speak, or are you just here to nod? Okay, all right. Does anyone have any motion they want to offer or anything they want changed, pulled from the agenda? Pulled.
Can I ask a question
Sure.
about the fire event? I think I saw something posted about it. It looks like it's gonna be a lot of fun. There's gonna be a water fight. Right.
If you're going to speak, you have to
Yeah,
come
I'm
to the
sorry.
microphone and identify yourself.
Somebody has to come up. Appreciate it. You have to say your name.
You have to say your name.
Oh,
and your-
Jason Fiedler with the Platteville Fire Department addressing the question on what water fights. So pretty much it's a firefighting activity. It's where they shoot a barrel on a cable back and forth for time and competition. And is there anything else you want me to?
Okay, no, I just was
Just have
envisioning.
never seen one of these.
I was just envisioning kids throwing water balloons at each other. I
Oh.
just want the clarity before I signed my kids up for it. Okay, that was it. It was a personal question.
And Jason, this is generally one fire department
Against another fire department?
faces off against another fire
Yes.
department.
Okay.
So it's not a citizen participation, generally
Correct.
speaking.
Typically, it's not, yes.
generally speaking.
Yeah.
Okay, so the council will not be fielding a team for this event.
Right, right. If I could get.
If you want to, you can. We're not gonna stop you.
That was all I wanted. Thank you.
Yeah, you could sell tickets for that.
Right, right.
All right, do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as printed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Kathy and a second by Ken to approve the consent agenda as presented. Colette will vote.
Parrot,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yeah.
Null,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, we're at the point we have citizens' comments, observations, and petitions, if any. And I would call first on Adam from our Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department to talk about an upcoming event.
Yep, our office was approached by some UWP students about hosting an event at City Park. It's a 4-band event, all original and or cover music. It's going to be hopefully be hosted on May 4th. Everybody that was involved was under the understanding that there will be no profanity in their music. They were also under the understanding that their music has to be done by 10:30 p.m. There will be no services as far as food or alcohol on the premises. It's just a get together of some college friends that each have individual bands that want to display their music kind of the public for free. So they're utilizing that opportunity to do so. So their event coordinator is Joseph Fortino. He's a college student. He gave me all of his information and wanted me to come up and talk about his event today.
Okay, so this would be Saturday, May 4th.
Oh, it will be amplified music, I'm sorry, but like I stated, it's supposed to be, yes, and it is Saturday, May 4th, I'm sorry. But it is, like I told Joseph, it's supposed to be contained to the confines of the park. So if it goes past the street, they were told that they're supposed to turn down, and or they could be also asked to shut down.
And the time again?
They were hoping to start by 6 p.m. and run till 10 or 10:30 p.m.
All right, any council members with questions? Otherwise, thanks, Adam. I have a green sheet here from Reverend Jasmine Testall. So Reverend Testall, who wants to talk about homelessness and housing insecurity.
Good evening, council. I'm Pastor Jasmine Tesdall from Lutheran Church of Peace here in Platteville. And good evening, City Manager Langreck and Mr. Crowfoot, Mr. Carroll, and everybody gathered. I've come this evening to raise your awareness to a growing trend that local clergy are seeing. For the last few months, leaders from many local churches, including First Congregational UCC, Platteville United Methodist, Platteville Free Methodist, Trinity Episcopal, St. Mary's Catholic, First English Lutheran, Rolling Hills Church, Community Evangelical Free Church, New Hope Church, Whig Church, Calvary Baptist Church, and Lutheran Church of Peace have been meeting to discuss the growing trend of homelessness and housing insecurity that we have been seeing in the city and throughout the region. Local churches have been addressing these needs in a variety of ways, but it's very clear to us that the issues are much more systemic, and the issues include challenges of housing affordability in our town, housing availability in our town, city resources, employment opportunities, and transportation options, just to name a few. We as churches will continue to meet and to work toward long-term goals through, nonprofits like Family Promise and other options, but there's going to be a bigger need for solutions. And so I came tonight just to share with you that local pastors are seeing this issue, and that we urge the council to keep housing for all people, regardless of their socioeconomic background or, whatever they have going on. Keep housing availability in the front of your radar, so that all who want to work and live in Platteville have the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Anybody with? Okay,
I-
thank you. Jen.
Yeah, I appreciate your awareness. I appreciate how the churches are coming together and know that at least it's been in conversation. I think that's why we were representing with Tide. It's just kind of see what the community needs and how we can either find out how we work it together, or represent Platteville and take it to a higher level. So I appreciate that. If you can, I would hope that you can at least keep me informed with what you guys are coming up with as far as that. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
How many homeless? Any idea?
Well, we have it's really hard to say. Lots of people come with lots of issues. Not everybody is homeless yet. And so, some people come to churches when they're about to be homeless, asking for help so that they can stay where they are, which is ideal. Some people come when they're sleeping in their car. And so, every month, the churches that I named, each church is at least interacting with one person who is housing insecure. Some churches like mine are interacting with probably more like 4 a month or 5. So it really depends. We don't have a hard and fast number. And that's the challenging thing about housing insecurity in rural places like ours. You can't just go out and count heads of people sleeping under a bridge, because they're not sleeping under bridges all the time, especially in the winter. They're sleeping on couches and in their cars and sort of moving around. So it doesn't mean that the issue's not there just because we can't see it. But we are starting, now that we've been talking, we have been starting to kind of track how many people, to get a better idea of how many people we're seeing on a yearly basis or a monthly basis. Thank you.
Reverend Tesdall?
Yes.
I know there's a program, I'm not sure of its name, where different churches, I'm thinking Grant County, house people who are housing insecure on a rotational basis.
Yeah, that's
Um,
called Family Promise.
Okay,
Um,
are there still openings in Family Promise? Or is it full?
yeah, there are openings and housing or Family Promise is a great option for families, but you must have children to be allowed to be in the program. So if you're a single person, it's not for you. If you're a couple, it's not for you. And so there are lots of options to make sure that children aren't homeless in our community, which is wonderful. But it's those other people, those couples, those single folks who are kind of falling through the cracks, and there aren't a lot of resources for them.
Thank you, I didn't know that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And okay.
My name is Ray Gatke. I live up on the north side of town. I've lived up there for 40 years. And it's just on the north side of the Smith Park. And it seems like there's getting to be an awful lot of vandalism up there. And I did give you some pictures of what's going on in these tennis courts up there. It's kind of disheartening when you walk around the park first thing in the morning and this is what you see, all this garbage thrown all over. They've tried, the park commission has put garbage cans around close to it. Actually, they've fastened garbage cans to the benches. And you get the same results instead of throwing it in the garbage can right here, they just toss it out. And myself, I walk around that park every morning for 40 years. So I've seen what's happened around here. You know, it kind of spikes sometimes, but it seems like the problem is on the weekends more so. You get a certain bunch of people up there and it's always the same ones and they just throw the stuff out. And I don't know what the answer is. I just hate to see these kids do this stuff now. What happens when they get older? Are they gonna just increase things like that? So I guess we could maybe get some signs up there, because littering is a problem in Platteville here. And I could go, even walking around the whole city, you see stuff all over. But maybe if they get some signs up there that say that you know, you could be fined for this if you do it. And I guess that's all I had.
All right, thank you. And we'll see that our Parks Rec and Forestry Department and our Police Department get, Ray and Paula brought photos of the Bend. This is by, I think it's by the basketball courts on the north side. Yeah, they're basketball courts. Oh, you got them, Doug? Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention. I understand what you're saying. Okay, that's all I have for citizens' comments, observations, and petitions. Let's go on to the reports that were in the packet. We had the Water and Sewer Commission report. Ken or Kathy, anything to add?
Nothing to add.
Board of Appeals, Todd.
Nothing to add either.
Okay, and the other report in the packet was our ARPA funding usage report. Nicola.
Thank you. So I thought it would be helpful to the council to get an update on ARPA usage. And as way of introduction, back during the pandemic, as one of the many laws that was passed at the federal level was the American Rescue Plan Act, also known as ARPA. As a result of ARPA, the city of Platteville, along with municipalities across the United States, received some funding from the federal government through the state of Wisconsin. We received $1,265,129. And at that time, if you were on the council, you may remember that we sat down with the city manager and went through various ways in which we would, we thought best to spend those funds. At the beginning, there was more specific guidance coming out of the federal government on how those funds would be used. But then as time went by, I think that there was a recognition that It might be a rather a lot of record keeping. So the government came out with a $10 million threshold. And if you received less than $10 million, then pretty much all bets were off and you could use the funds however you wanted. There's a couple of things you could not do. Anyway, so what we have here is, several years later, a report of where we are at. And you'll see here that you have on your report a project title and then an approved project budget. You'll see there highlighted in green is the original ARPA budget and then any additional ARPA allocations that were made subsequent to that initial budget that we came up with back in 2021. And then sometimes with some of the projects, we used ARPA funds to supplement city-provided funds. So maybe CIP funds, part of the budget, or a grant or some other source of funding. And then you can see total project costs as of the end of March of this year. You can see a designation there if the project was over or under budget. And some of those are NA because they're not completed yet. And then you can see over to the right is completion status as of the end of March, and then some detailed description about each project. So I thought I would just whiz through these and give you a bullet point on the projects so you kind of know, and so anybody that happens to be watching this might know how those funds have been used. I also want to point out that in 2023, we received an additional allocation through the state of $58,159. So the total amount that we had and have to spend is $1,323,288. And I believe that you'll find that on the bottom of the report. Okay, so the first thing we put money towards was an IT server upgrade. Original budget was $56,000. We spent $66,145, and that is completed. Then we had some sort of multiple pronged projects to upgrade audio visual in various places throughout City Hall, including in the council chambers. And so that big flat screen up there and the screens on your desktops over there are part of that project. And that was in recognition of wanting to be able to have people attend remotely if necessary. Certainly that was necessary during the pandemic and still is something that we utilize now. Some of our culture has shifted so that that's become more commonplace. And then also we are finishing the remodel that we started back in, I think, 2018. And that's phase 3 of the City Hall remodel. So that project is still underway, anticipated to be completed a little later this year. We did a compensation plan update, and that has been completed. We are still working on a citywide surveillance camera project, 100,000 of which came from ARPA funds, but other funds were put towards that as well. But that is more than 50% complete now, and I think there would be the opportunity to expand that project with non-ARPA funds if the City Council was so inclined during the budget process. We also had a project called the West Main Street Culvert Replacement. That project ran into some difficulties with the contractor, but ultimately did complete. However, because of those problems, it ended up being over budget by $35,907. That was funded 100% through ARPA funds. The Roundtree Streambank Stabilization Project was one that may be familiar to you. It has come up over several years. We ran into some problems with some new requirements from the DNR, but that project seems like it will complete this year. Then we had some projects that are grayed out. Those were some funds that we originally thought we would use ARPA monies for, but they either came in under the original bid, so we didn't need to supplement with ARPA, or they were a part of a CDBG grant that was mostly for the inclusivity playground, but included a couple of other aspects. And then under Parks and Rec, part of the Smith Park projects were stormwater and electrical and drinking fountains, which ARPA funds were used, $38,044. That project is completed. And then the Smith Park Stone Shelter restrooms, also completed. We added a couple of projects when we realized we needed to do some work at the swimming pool. So the integrity evaluation and swimming pool repairs used ARPA funds, 62,000 and 29,782 were the budgets. And those projects have been completed. And then at the museum, there was kind of a multi-pronged project, safety, security, and air quality. And that was supported through 16,800 of ARPA funds, and that is completed. At the, under the wastewater treatment plant, there were 2 separate buildings with air handling unit upgrades. One in the step screen building for 30,000 and one at the sand filter building for 90,000. We actually didn't need to use all of those funds, and you can see over there on the right, the actual funds used were 23,585 and 77,420, but both of those projects completed. We had a grant for the Housing Authority to provide security deposit assistance for people that needed it. I'm not actually sure whether all of those funds have been dispensed, but certainly in terms of transferring those funds to the Housing Authority, that has been done. There was an industrial park stormwater pond project, which the city assisted with due to some contractual obligations for 60,000. And then we had $75,000 set aside for a housing developer incentive and also for broadband provider incentive. The broadband provider incentive we decided to use for other things because of the Astria project, which did not require any supplemental funding from the city. The 75,000 I've represented there as pending use for the housing developer incentive. So that would be something that could be discussed as we go forward. And so then you can see the little math at the bottom. We've used at this point $1,065,499. We have pending budgeted ARPA funds of $245,904. And right now we have an unallocated balance of $11,886. Staff is recommending that we just hang tight for now and pending these other projects to complete in case they might go over budget and we might use or need some of that unallocated balance or possibly even some of that housing developer incentive. Any questions from the council on ARPA funding and usage?
Kathy?
Question is, as far as the ARPA funds, is there a deadline of when those funds have to be spent?
So they have to be obligated this year.
Obligated this year?
Obligated this year.
Obligated but not spent.
But it's not spent
Okay.
by next year.
Any other questions?
So the housing developers incentive has not been spent, it's just been allocated.
So we provided those funds to the Housing Authority.
Okay.
So the city is no longer in possession of that 20,000.
20,000, she's talking about the 70.
70. Mhm.
Oh, I'm sorry, the 75,000.
Yeah.
So yes, we have that set aside. And originally the council approved using that for an unknown or as yet unidentified housing developer incentive. So that's something that the council could reconsider in the future and decide that there was another project that the council wanted to use it for, or it could still yet be used for a potential housing developer incentive. But we would want to specifically identify that and obligate those funds for that by the end of 2024.
Okay.
Does that help, or did that answer the?
You know, it's just helped to, I had a thought and I was gonna talk to the pastor about it. No, it good. I just want to see. You know,
Okay.
I don't want to
Okay.
start throwing stuff out, but yeah.
All right. Any other questions? All right, then that is the end of the reports. We'll move into the action portion of our agenda. The first of which is Resolution 2404, DNR Land Acquisition Grant Application East Side Trail Extension. Joe?
Yes, so the Platteville Community Arboretum is working on a project to expand the Round Tree Branch Trail. They'd like to extend it from its current location near Business Highway 151, where it kind of crosses the highway there, out to East Side Road, following the old railroad right away. And then as part of that, they would also have a kind of a secondary project to acquire some additional land, vacant land on Valley Road that could be used for parking and trailhead access point. So to assist with that project, they're looking to apply for a DNR land acquisition grant. It would be a 50-50 matching grant. The way that's set up, the city would have to be the applicant because we would own the property when they were acquired. Even though the Arboretum is doing the contact with the property owners and so forth, and as far as the work on the trail itself, the city would be considered the applicant, so the council would have to authorize the application itself. And there is a resolution in your packet that would go with that application. So that would be the first consideration is the city interested in applying for that grant? I think the second question that the Arboretum wanted is, should that parking lot area be included as part of that application, or should that be a separate project? And then I think a future consideration is, would the city be interested in providing some financial assistance towards that project? But the initial request is to proceed or not proceed with the grant application.
Questions?
I have a question.
Okay,
Looking at the resolution number 24 and going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6, whereas the city of Platteville has budgeted a sum sufficient to complete the project or acquisition. So does the city have the funds at this time? It says here budgeted.
Not that I'm aware of. That is a resolution that the DNR had as a model that we have to use, so.
Don't have the
It-
money.
No, that would be, the Arboretum would be working on getting donations to provide that matching funding.
so would this be consistent with when we do the CIP? And if we have a project in the CIP that requires some city, some fundraised, some grant money, it's budgeted, but it doesn't say where the budget comes from.
Correct, yes.
So it has to be included on a line, Ken. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to come from tax dollars.
Right,
It
right.
could
It
come
just
from
can't be
donation.
DNR funds.
It can't be DNR funds.
So if we don't have the money, then we don't do the project.
Right.
Barb, I don't have a question, but I should probably make it known that I sit on the board for Platteville Community Arboretum. But I don't really feel like this is a conflict of interest because I'm not benefiting financially in any way from whether this goes through or not. It's a completely voluntary board.
I personally would like to see the trail acquisition piece from Business XX or 151 South and East. I would like to see the parking lot part separated from this. That's my personal opinion, that reserving the corridor for the trail is incredibly important. The parking lot is a different issue, in my opinion.
But I just want to raise take off on what Ken raised. So we are, by adopting this resolution, we are saying that we've budgeted a sum sufficient to complete the project, which is what a 50, what is the, is it a 50-50 match?
Correct.
So
But
Are we?
how
really
much
budget-
money are we talking about for the city?
Well, I don't think we're budgeting anything. I thought that PCA was, raising these funds.
That's what's behind this, but this isn't what the statement is saying. The resolution, that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and like I
The
said,
city is
unfortunately,
saying
that
that
that language was not our language. That's the language
I
that
get
was
that.
in the,
I just,
in our
But-
resolution, so.
But as I explained, we've budgeted items before. For instance, when we had ARPA funds, we budgeted and said we had for the Roundtree Bank stabilization. That came out of ARPA funds. It wasn't out of tax funds. So it was in that column on our CIP sheet that says other funds. But it has to be, I think what they say is it has to be shown in your budget, which is kind of the way they say it.
I think this is a don't waste our time type of a clause that they're incorporated into a resolution that you're saying on your application that you're going to cover your side of the expense if in fact you're awarded it, and then you still have to take the step then of accepting the grant.
Finding out how you're gonna do it, because it's gonna be, what, probably a year before they make decisions. I think, I don't know how soon these are made.
I guess I'm
Well,
still trying to
last time
wrap.
We talked about the fact that we may not give anything at all to the project.
Right. But it still may
Right.
be our project that has to be included in our budget. Give me other examples of things we've included in our budget that we've used. Well, the inclusive playground was
Some-
included in our budget.
So-
It was
sometimes-
budgeted money because it had to be in our budget, but 1.9 million for that project came from a CDBG grant and 600,000 came from fundraising, but it had to be shown in our budget.
Correct, and sometimes we budget in CIP, there may be a request from a department director to undergo a particular project, but there's not enough tax levy dollars for it, so it's included in the budget with grant funding or fundraising, but no tax dollars. But and then if the fundraising doesn't occur, then the project doesn't occur.
I just had a question about the property on Valley Road. Is it buildable? This property listed at $60,000 for
That's the parking lot
the
property.
parking lot property.
Is it buildable for construction?
Anything, yeah. I mean,
Well, for parking would be not an issue. For a habitable structure, it could be an issue because of the floodplain.
and that's why I was just curious about the price of it. Seems to be awful.
Yeah, then you get into the floor has to be 2 feet above the general floodplain area, so it's buildable, but it's more cost prohibitive. And
I
don't
think
know.
he's-
I haven't looked at the details, so.
I think he's saying, he's wondering about the price that's been put on that based on the fact that it's not a buildable lot.
That was, they got an appraisal done for that, so that's what the appraiser came up with for the value.
and I just have another question. The application process, Barb, you mentioned it might take up to a year.
Yeah, I don't
To get
know.
a-
What
I don't-
is it,
What,
is it, or is it?
any
you-
idea when we would hear about the grant? Because
Hey, Joe is gonna come to the microphone. I don't remember. that.
depending on how far out
Well,
is,
PCA president.
is are the property owners for the rail bed gonna remain consistent, or is there, if this takes a year to hear if we're gonna get the grant, what if one of the property owners decides to sell their chunk?
Right, so we would ask them to sign some paperwork beforehand with the grant application. It's called an option to purchase. Yeah.
Okay.
And I have
All
been in
right,
contact with
that's-
landowners. No one has
all right.
signed it yet because the resolution hasn't been passed, but that has been brought up. We would know probably by September if the grant was accepted or not. We'd probably have a calendar year, I imagine, to raise the funds.
I see that people are indicated here for owning property that you're gonna be purchasing. Except on Valley Road, it just says Valley Road. Who owns that property?
Well, it's listed under an LLC, but the property's name is Bob Lowe.
Bob Lowe.
Mhm.
Okay. Our Bob Lowe.
They're Bob Lowe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't make the prices of the land. So, like I was telling you last time that in order to appraise these properties, you have to have a certified DNR appraiser come down. I couldn't find one within 75 miles of here. It actually took me a long time, took me a month to get someone to come down here, and numerous phone calls. There's not a lot of these people. So, and there's really no argument with what they come up with. So, the values get appraised at what they get appraised at, and the DNR will cover 50% of those values.
Joe, in answer to Todd's question about the value of the Valley Road property, that was partially because of the rest of the property that was included in the purchase that contained that Valley Road lot, correct?
Yes, I mean, I
And the
can't really
stuff-
comment
the
on
building
how
on
they
Mineral Street.
appraise that lot, particular piece of parcel. I can tell
Okay.
you that it's appraised at 60,000. That some people have said that's high, but you know, if the DNR covers at 50%, is $30,000 reasonable? I think so. You know, that's.
And if that
Might be
lot is
simple,
also
depending.
included in the grant application, does that mean the city would be on the hook for, I guess, 50% of that lot as far as our budget goes?
Well, the estimated, if you look at their estimated values on page whatever it is, the DNR contribution, they're looking at 108,000, 108, yeah, $108,500, and the city/PCA contribution at $127,500. So that is billed, that it, you know, they're looking at the Valley Road property as 60K, 30K for each.
So we'd have to budget 30,000
So
if we include
that,
that.
the
in
budget
grant
would have to be
application.
127.5,
Mhm.
but I don't think there's been any indication that the city would put up tax dollars for this. I mean, there's a request, but I don't think there's been concurrence.
Oh, no.
How much of the trail is outside the city limits?
Nothing in that new east side. That's all city property.
How about
It's all in the city limits.
everything?
Everything.
I've actually walked the East Side Trail 2 or 3 years ago. It's a great piece of, it would be a great addition to the trail project. So I'm in support of this application, at least for the trail. Again, I have my reservations for the parking lot. Anybody else want to make comments or?
I just didn't know if we included the parking lot, and PCA had to come up with all of the money, if there would be any issues, other than we feel that it's overpriced.
I'm willing to make a motion when you're ready.
I mean,
Okay.
I think if the application goes in with the parking lot, then the obligation is 127.5 or whatever it was, 127.5 has to be budgeted by the city. It doesn't have to be paid by the city, but it's a city project. So this would be a grant application of 108.5 to DNR. Matching funds would be 108, but since there are some properties, there's at least one property that was valued, or that the value is significant, that the property owner wants significantly more than the appraisal, then the city would, or the project would have to take on the extra for that. So that's why it's 127.5 for PCA and city and 108.5 for DNR.
Barb, I share your issue with the Valley Road property. I mean, as far as acquisition, yeah, there is a price to that, but that's just for acquisition.
Right.
If it becomes,
Then you have to make a parking lot.
if it becomes a parking lot, there's going to be a pretty good sized cost to develop.
Yeah, I don't actually know how much.
Well, I mean, it would have
You
to be
can-
paved, right? It couldn't be.
It would have to be, well, I guess it could be
Gravel.
gravelled.
was gonna say, leave it unimproved for the next,
100 years?
yeah, what is, I mean, you've got a 4-wheel drive, you can park there. Rust.
Sure, but you know, if it's going to be used as such, then you would need to make some form of a trailhead.
We're just asking what the parking lot would cost. Let's not even talk about a
No.
trailhead,
Okay,
okay? And bathrooms or anything else. We're just saying you got a pristine piece of property and now you're gonna turn that into a parking lot.
I don't have a number at this point, but what I'm saying is that those would also be eligible for DNR and or DOT grants as well.
To make the parking lot.
Yes,
Particularly then if you put a trailhead in, DNR would be happy. I see.
yes.
I see. It's all in how you say it.
And it is gravel right now. I don't know if everyone knows that.
Oh, I don't know.
It is.
It's gravel.
Yeah, so it could just be left as gravel and people could probably park on it. But I imagine the curb would have to be, something would have to be done with the curb so people could drive in. Mhm.
Okay, Todd, you said you were ready.
I do, I do. A motion to approve the application for a DNR land acquisition grant for East Side Trail Extension as proposed, including approval of the required resolution.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2404, I believe it is. DNR land acquisition grant application for the East Side Trail Extension. Colette?
Parrot,
Yes.
Hop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yeah,
Null,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item which is unlawful tax claim, Grant County Humane Society. Nicola?
Thank you. On January 31st of this year, the city received an unlawful tax claim that was submitted by the Grant County Humane Society. The claim was made for parcel 271-00377-000, which is at 500 East Business Highway 151. On that same day also, a payment was made. It was a partial payment, but not the half or the full half of the taxes due on the property that were due on January 31st. The city on the same day submitted the claim to the city attorney for review and response. Our city attorney provided us with a memorandum. Some key takeaways from the memorandum is that, first of all, under state statute, a humane society is exempt from property tax. However, because of the timing of when the property was closed on, which was after March 1st, a tax exempt eligible property is not eligible to be tax exempt during that first year of ownership if ownership is taken after March 1st. Also, in order to bring an unlawful tax claim, the statutes require that the claimant pay the taxes owed timely and fully as a condition precedent to bringing a claim. The attorney noted that Grant County Humane Society had failed to timely pay the taxes on the property and therefore had failed to meet the statutory prerequisite for recovery of an unlawful tax claim. Denial of the claim means that Grant County Humane Society remains responsible for payment of the outstanding property taxes plus any penalties and interest due. We also noted that if the council were to allow the claim, despite Grant County Humane Society not having met the statutory requirements, that the county would then, the council or the city would then be responsible for the taxes on the property. The city attorney recommendation is for denial of the claim.
When you said the city would be responsible, you're saying the city would be responsible for not only that portion of the tax that would be city tax, but also the tax that would be school tax, the tax that would be county tax, and the tax that would be Southwest Technical College tax.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I have a question. Reading on January 26th, letter 2024, it's from the people that are claiming that they do not need to pay a tax, but they do state here that we spent months visiting with the Platteville municipality to obtain a conditional use permit. During these meetings, we were able to take questions from numerous committee and city council individuals. Quite often, the conversation went to the loss of tax revenue selling to a nonprofit would not necessitate. The three groups of the Freudenreich Committee, the Planning Commission, the General City Council, as well as the municipal administration, understood that the taxes for this building would be waived. So, to me, the way they write this, it appears that they were misled as far as what they were told about whether taxes were due. And so, and then the city attorney comes along and says, well, the taxes are due. So I think you have a situation of misleading the people as far as whether they had to pay taxes.
I think that there was knowledge missing at the time that those discussions took place, which was the law related to transfer of ownership of a property. So the state statutes do specify that humane societies are property tax exempt, but they cannot be property tax exempt in the year in which they take ownership of a commercial property if the ownership transition is after March the 1st.
But,
So at the council meetings, when we discussed this, it was understood that generally speaking, the Humane Society would be property tax exempt. We discussed, in fact, the way in which that discussion came up was there was a question as to how much loss of tax revenue would the city suffer as a result of the Humane Society being a tax exempt entity. We did not specifically discuss the property tax liability in the year of transition.
but somehow these people got the idea that it was tax exempt. And so they were misled.
I would beg to differ. I think that
Well, this is the way.
they
way it comes across.
misunderstood, or they did not have all of the information related to the transition of the property.
But somehow, among these groups that these people talked with, they got the idea they did not have to pay a tax.
I know I was sitting on the planning commission and at no point did we ever promise anybody that they would get anything. We understood we were gonna lose tax money. We highly supported the Humane Society coming to Platteville and everything they bring to the community, but at no point, I guess, does anyone on the planning commission have the ability to write someone's taxes off. And this, I think, is something that perhaps they overlooked with not, as Nicola says, certainly not the responsibility of the planning commission to ensure everybody understands their legal rights in regards to taxes and tax-free status. Unfortunately, we love the Humane Society, but we can't make an exception here without making an exception for every tax entity as we discussed. So we're kind of in a rock and a hard spot. And as I say, we love them to death, but we can't do this as a city either. And that, I think, has been made very clear, because if there was any possible way of helping them, we would have. And I think they ought to know that too. So.
Yeah, I agree with you, Todd. Like at some point, there has to be a due diligence done by the person making the payment, the purchase. And I think that if they had at least had their own attorney, that the attorney may have told, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know if we should take that. Plus, are we setting ourselves up for precedent, to set a precedent? You know what I'm saying? So as much as I love, and I'm looking forward to it, we're here to represent. And I feel bad, but yeah.
Tom?
My comments on this is, I would suggest to the Humane Society that they go back to their attorney or whoever was the realtor that sold them the property and ask them to see whether they might be able to work something out between the seller and the buyers to, because they did get a credit at closing for the amount of taxes that would be owed at the end of the year in the seller's portion. So somehow somebody dropped the ball. And so the only thing I can say is we can't tell them what to do, but we can highly suggest that they might want to contact their attorney and also the realtor involved and the seller and see whether they can't work that out. So that's my comment.
Is there anybody ready to make a motion?
I move to table the item.
A move to table does not require a second. If you want to table the item, you vote yes. If you do not want to table the item, you vote no. Colette will vote.
Parrot,
Okay, wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah, tabling means we take no action,
Until,
ever, maybe.
Until what Tom had said.
Well, you didn't say that in your motion.
right, that's why I was like, wait, what are we doing? Okay, so at this
You want
point,
to
it's
table.
no,
No.
right, no.
Cop,
No.
Casper,
No.
Doss,
No.
Gates,
No.
Killian.
Yes.
Null,
No,
motion failed.
Anybody else have a motion?
Motion to deny the claim of unlawful tax by Grant County Humane Society Incorporated per Wisconsin statute 74.35 paren 5 paren C, which states that no claim may be maintained unless the tax for which the claim is filed is timely paid.
I hear a
A second.
Okay, we have a motion by Todd and a second by Bob to deny the claim for unlawful tax by the Grant County Humane Society. Colette will vote.
Parrot,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Answer is no. I believe this is unfair action. Thank you.
Null,
Put that in the minutes too.
yes.
All right, that ends the action portion of our agenda. We'll move on to information and discussion. There's one item on this information and discussion. We have no information.
I did not receive any additional information from the developer.
So there is no discussion.
I can fill people in if they have questions on why that's in there, but otherwise I have no.
I think until you
Details.
receive anything, we probably should just.
That's fine.
So for those, 2101 Progressive Parkway is out by Goodwill, right?
Correct.
That's just the parcel. Okay. That's the end of information and discussion. We'll move to closed session then. If I can get a motion per Wisconsin statute 1985, parent 1, parent E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. This is about possible land acquisition.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Bob, second by Kathy. By the way, we will return to open session. There won't be action though to take in open.
We can close, or we can adjourn out of close session.
We can, we'll just adjourn out of closed session. We don't expect to take action. Colette will vote.
Parrot,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Null,
Yes.
motion carries.